Welcome to Aging with Dignity. I'm your host, Versha. For many of us, a home is much more than a place we live. It's where our lives have unfolded over the years, oftentimes decades. It's where families were raised, where holidays were celebrated, and where everyday routines quietly became the fabric of our memories. And yet, at some point in life, many older adults, and often their families as well, begin to wonder whether that home still fits the next chapter ahead. Maybe the stairs are becoming a little more difficult. Maybe the maintenance feels like more than it once did. Or perhaps there's simply a desire to simply move closer to family, simplify life, or live in a place that offers a bit more support and convenience. Whatever the reason, the decision to sell a long-time home and transition to something new is rarely just about real estate. It's emotional, it's deeply personal, and for many families, it can feel overwhelming simply trying to figure out where to begin. That's exactly why I'm so pleased to welcome my guest today, Suzanne Larmour, known to many as Susie. Susie's a real estate broker who has built her work around guiding people through major life transitions. She understands that selling a home later in life isn't just about listing a property. It's about helping people navigate change with clarity, patience, and respect for the memories and meaning tied to that space. In our conversation today, we'll talk about what makes these transitions different for older adults, how families can begin planning before decisions become urgent, and what practical steps can make the process smoother and less stressful for everyone involved. And later in the episode, we'll also hear briefly from Barb, who's right at the beginning of this journey with Susie. Barb has graciously agreed to share a bit about what it feels like to be at that starting point, thinking about the decision and beginning to take those first steps. Our hope is to reconnect with Barb later on, once the process is complete, and hear how the experience unfolded and what she learned along the way. So, this episode really gives us both perspectives: the guidance of someone who works in this space every day, and the lived experience of someone just beginning the transition. Let's begin. Susie, welcome. I'm really glad you're here with us today. Before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about your professional background and what drew you specifically to working with older adults and major life transitions?
Hi, Varsha. Thanks for having me. So I've been in real estate for several years now, and over time, I realized that it's really not about the transaction itself. It's really about helping people navigate major life changes. From my own personal experience, this really hits close to home because I've lived through my mom when I was younger. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and we had to adapt our home um, for her needs, and that at that time was for her to have a room on the main floor because she couldn't go upstairs anymore. Years later, my dad became paralyzed from the waist down, so we had to adapt the home for an electric wheelchair. So that included like a lift so that he could get the chair up into to the garage from the garage entrance, and the showers and doors and everything. So that was something else. And then eventually sold that home. And then the most recent thing that happened was my sister passed away suddenly at a young age, and I was the one. My other sister lives in England, so I was the one that had to go through all her personal belongings and organize things and get rid of things. So I guess having those kinds of experiences, it gives me a different perspective on what's how all this is affecting people's lives. And I guess I can just really put myself in their shoes. And it's especially when it's like these conversations are very hard, and it's very difficult for people to um you know have to talk about these subjects and come to these realizations and just realize that there's big changes that have to be made.
Susie, first of all, sorry for your loss and the challenges along the way at a very young age for you as your parents were going through and you were there to support them. And thank you for being open and sharing those experiences with us here on AWD. It's not surprising that it has shaped your transition in your career. Being able to look at older adults and understand what they may be going through from your own personal background. So it certainly has positioned you quite uniquely in that respect. So do embrace the experiences that you've had, that they really do make us who we are. You often have said to me, you don't just sell homes, you're guiding people through these changes. What does that mean in practice for your clients that are actually older, in their 70s or 80s? They might be selling their home later in life. So very emotional, of different kind of selling than at any other stage of life, isn't it?
It's very different. So, I mean, when you think about it, somebody who's in their 70s and 80s, the move is really just about the house. It's about like leaving a place where they raise their family, celebrate holidays, built their lives. So guiding people like through that change really means just like slowing down the process, listening, understanding where they're coming from, and just helping them guide or helping guide them through this big change. And sometimes it just simply means like reassuring them that it's okay to take the next step.
Yeah. So you've had a very unique front row seat to hundreds of these decisions. What is the uncomfortable truth about selling later in life that most families don't realize until they're probably already in it?
Honestly, the uncomfortable truth is that usually people they wait until a health scare happens or an accident happens, and they're forced into making this change quickly and these decisions very fast, which ends up being very stressful. So I think that's the most uncomfortable part of it, is just because when you're having those conversations, when it's forced, it's the hard ones that you're having.
Yeah, so operating in a crisis mode is never an easy way. It is human nature too to just wait until we're in that position. In your experience, when should somebody ideally start to think about preparing for a future move? So even if they're not planning to move right away, but they're in that age group, they're seeing life changes happening. What when should they start, and what does preparing early actually look like day to day, for an older homeowner that might be preparing for this change?
Honestly, this is probably my favorite question, like, because I honestly think that even I could practice this. I think we all could in life, but I think starting early just means, starting years before you even think you're going to move, Like I try to tell my clients like pretend like you're moving next year or this year, because then you're ready. And also even for us, like just being organized. So starting to declutter, fixing minor repairs, upkeeping, the paint, things like that, so that when you have to make these changes or this move, you're already halfway there and it's not so much of a stress.
Yeah, and so many people don't do that, right? I mean, my own situation with my parents, um, they considered several transitions, the options that we put to them, and then decide they want to stay in their home. But even while staying in their home, and I don't fault them, because in my particular situation, by the time we were having these conversations, my parents were in their 80s. My mother had a rare form of dementia. My father was the primary caregiver. So he didn't have any bandwidth to do this, but we kept saying, declutter, declutter, declutter. My sister actually came the year prior and took care of the garage, which was one big thing. So at least it got them started. But it's really a tough start until to get into that mindset. And Susie, you're in living rooms with families during these very emotional decisions. And once your business cards and your contracts and all that marketing language is gone, and you're really into the throes of it, what is the truth about these transitions that people really don't understand until they're actually fully in the middle of it?
So yeah, so I guess like the truth about these preparations is really that the hardest part is, once you're in it, you have to make accommodations to get the home prepared and to prepare everything, whether it be, the personal aspect and maybe a financial aspect, but having to make time. So the people who have to help are usually the kids, and they're very busy. So trying to figure out who is going to help and how you're going to get it done. And if it's an urgent matter, sometimes it makes it even more stressful. So I guess that it's a very emotional task, and it's definitely hard once you're right in the middle of it. But at the end of it, honestly, I can say that I've seen families just have such a relief, like so much stress relief after once it's done. And yeah, it's great to see when it's finally over and everyone is, where they need to be and things are finished. The the outcome is just it's honestly it's so fulfilling for me because then I feel like everybody is happy and they feel comfortable.
True. And the preparation, you've mentioned this a couple of times. So let's take a look at some of the practical aspects of that if we can in the preparation for this transition. So how would you help someone separate? The biggest thing that I keep hearing is the memories of the home they've lived in for 20, 30, 40 years. How do you help someone separate those memories of the physical space so that they can move forward without feeling the guilt or feeling like they're losing a piece of themselves? Do you have any advice for our listeners that they can take on and start to apply in their journeys in transitioning away from their home, even before perhaps they start to call you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, I mean, I totally understand people always, they look at a house and they think about all the memories, and everything they built there. But what I always remind people is like, it's about the relationships you create in that home. It's about those memories that stay with you, not within those four walls. Taking pictures of those spaces, having, keeping maybe special items, sharing those stories that you had with other family members, like really honoring, that life that you lived there. I think that is the best advice that I could give people because, you know, it really depends on who you're with, not about where you are. So.
Yeah, and honestly, the combination of taking pictures and things around the house that you want to have a memory point of or a scrapbook of, along with the decluttering that you talked about earlier, these things take time. And they are an emotional journey on their own right? So you start to pull out the boxes of all the photographs before digital, right? We all have these photographs that we have to go through. So how do we go through them? How do we decide what we want to keep, what we don't? What do we want to pass on? Those are all decisions that take time. Children's clothing, children's first books, children's things that you want to pass on to the next generation. These are all decisions that need to be made, and as we said, takes time. Let's look a little bit differently. So somebody's been living in their home for many, many years. What would you advise them? Do they start to take on more repairs and updates to their home before selling? Or are there small repairs or improvements that they should start to look at that do make a big difference when it comes time to selling?
I mean, I feel like so this question I can go on for hours about this question, but I'm going to just use really about just doing like the small things. If you're doing something within a short period of time, fresh paint, good lighting, small repairs, decluttering, a good cleaning goes a long way. Over time, I would say if somebody is looking, if they're living in a home and they know they're going to be there for 30 years, I would say every, 5, 10 years, make sure that the big things in your house are good. Your windows, your roof, your heat pump. But again, like if we're talking about at a later time in life and you're looking to sell within the next 5 years, I would say just start decluttering, start, freshening it up, make the home look well cared for.
Okay, so selling within the next 5 years, you don't take on any big renovations. You don't take on changing the windows or roof or anything, unless there's an emergency situation, of course. Is
Yeah,
that what I'm
of
hearing?
course.
Yeah.
Of course, as long as like the roof is within its lifespan, like there's no reason to change it. If you want to, if you're going to renovate your kitchen, it can go anywhere. It can get very pricey. So, doing the things that are big like that, I don't think it's worth it if you're looking to sell, especially like, closer to like 2, 3 years. I don't think you should do those things. I think you should just, unless that is something that you would want to do for yourself. That's what I always tell people. If it's something that
Yeah.
makes you happy, want to live in, then go ahead and do it. But I wouldn't just do it just to sell the house.
Right, and presumably, if you're renovating a kitchen, you're planning to stay there more than 2, 3 years. And it's interesting because if you renovate a kitchen, you think, "Oh, it's, the kitchens and the bathrooms, these are the big rooms that tend to catch people's attention." But if I'm going to invest in upgrading or even updating my kitchen, what I choose, the design, even if I stay with the standard design, but I pick the tiles I pick, the countertops I pick, the person I'm selling to may not like any of that. They're going to take everything and chuck it and do their own thing. They may want to tear down walls. We don't know what the buyer wants. So why not save that investment and do things like you were suggesting, the fresh paint upgrade or pay someone to help you declutter. These are things that are money that you will see the return on. What about families that have had to adapt their home? So, in the case of my parents, we had to put in a stair lift. We changed the bathtub to a shower, which is fine. But some people have had to put in, wheelchair accessibility and other upgrades in order to accommodate their living changes that were happening. Do these accessibility upgrades play into preparing a home for sale? Should you be removing them? Do you leave it as is? Is there a best practice that you can say around that?
I mean, I guess because the best practice would mean it really depends on the situation. Is the owner who needs to use these, like the stair lift, are they still living there? Then, if that's the case, then it has to stay there. But if somebody's not in the home anymore, I know that there is a big demand for these things. So I would say if you can sell it, sell it. It doesn't hurt to have it removed, or if it's something that's just not feasible, then you leave it. And it just shows that it reflects that the home was adapted to support their needs.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not something too bad, to be honest with you.
So when people look back after they've moved, what do they most often say they wish they had done differently?
I mean, the most common thing I hear is that I wish I started earlier. I wish I was more organized or more prepared, right? But I mean, I understand that. I mean, I wish I was more organized as well. So I
Absolutely.
yeah. But they
So,
never regret
Susan,
the move.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good insight to hear. Yeah. Susie, one of the things that I appreciate about our conversation today is that we're not just talking about this in theory. Joining us is someone who is actually at the beginning of this very journey. And for our AWD listeners, this is a unique opportunity to hear from someone who's right at the starting point, thinking through the decision, the emotions, the practical steps. And later, once the process is complete, we're hoping to reconnect and hear how that story unfolds. So let's cut over to that conversation with Barb. Barbara, thank you for joining us here on Aging with Dignity and for being willing to come and share your story with us and our audiences. I really appreciate that. You're at the beginning of your journey right now, so you're really at that moment of starting on this new phase of your life. Can you share with us what was that moment that made you start thinking about this is now the time to start to consider a move? What was that like for you?
Very good question. I believe probably what we're living in is a very big home. Okay, and looking elsewhere, I realized that our lifestyle could change immediately. So, we're so trapped, feeling trapped into our big home. We have rooms, we have 5 rooms, and we said, well, half of them are just collecting dust and whatnot. And we said, we need a new lifestyle, meaning to go into a lot smaller home where we don't have to be forced to clean every day, do all the maintenance every day, just making our lives easier to live and enjoy our later years. I mean, we're in our early 70s and we want to change our lifestyle and, change some financial burdens in the home and just a new change in our life. So it is, and I looked at it all and I said, we're almost like feeling trapped into our big home. So we want to change it and to enjoy things again. So, and we looked at everything. We go, I don't use this room. I don't do this. And our daughters each have their own. Our oldest one has her own home now, and our other one's getting into condos. So, they have a pool. She has a pool, so we can go there. We can do all these things. So we don't need those what kind of luxuries in our home anymore because we can share it with our families. So all that has just changed our perspective downsizing to
Very,
live a long life.
very, very interesting. It's interesting that you're actually quite proactive. You're not waiting for a moment of crisis. You're anticipating that life will change,
Yes.
and we don't know what that's going to look like. But let's be proactive about it. And it sounds like you're at that point where you're saying you're recognizing that you're not using all the rooms in your home.
No.
So let's look at something that's a little bit more conducive to the lifestyle you want to live.
And
Um,
safety
and
as well,
safety.
because we have stairs, and my husband now is focusing on experiencing hip issues and
Mm,
legs issues, so
yeah,
back issues, and we're having a hard time. He's having a hard time going up and down the stairs. So and he's not there to the point where he can't
yeah,
walk down the stairs, but we're looking for, okay, let's get a one level where we're going to be able to, we're trying to think it for the future, that think life will change. In our
abs-
70s, life will change. So we want to be, proactive and start doing things now before it gets to that crucial point,
absolutely. A
as we
great
can.
point. And life changed in your 30s and 40s as well when you were upscaling. So
Yes.
this is just another point. As you start this process with Susie, what emotions are coming up for you right now? Are you excited? Is there uncertainty? Maybe even a little bit of fear?
Oh, it's such a good question. Bittersweet.
Bittersweet.
Very bittersweet. I mean, absolutely love my home. We've been in this home for 26 years. And I think I love it as much as I did the day I moved in. It's a family home, and this home has created a lot of memories. With the kids growing up, they were 10 years old and 8 years old, and we got a pool put in and all these things. So now I start looking around and I go, yeah, it's the memories. So I will be emotionally upset when we leave, but I know in my heart, in our hearts, that it's time to leave it. I mean, your home is built on memories. It is. Everything, birthday parties, Christmas, christenings, gatherings, friends, meeting friends, along the way. So yeah, no, it's an emotion. It's very emotionally, what's the proper word? Peeving. It really is emotional for sure, and I
Of
will, but
course.
I'm ready. And when you're ready, you're ready. So I mean, yeah, of course I'm going to cry the day that I will leave that home, because it's a great family home, and
Of
it's
course.
it's emotionally disturbing. It's
Yeah.
getting around that.
But you'll be starting your new chapter in some other place and you'll create new
Make
memories.
exactly creating
Yeah.
new memories for the
Yeah.
family, and oh, absolutely. But it's time to to get there and explore and start exploring our new life and
Right.
creating those new memories. Yes.
So, Barb, looking forward, after your move is complete, your house is sold, and you're settled somewhere new, what are you hoping that you'll be able to say about this experience? What do you hope that this transition will feel like success for you? What does that look like for you?
It's going to open up more doors for my husband and I to it'll change the financial burden of being stuck in the big home, paying all those maintenance and landscaping and all this is going to be a lot quieter lifestyle,
Mm,
smaller and more accessibility for us to change. And we want to travel, so this is going to be it's going to be a very good thing for us to move on to.
absolutely.
And yeah, it'll change life immensely, in a
I'm,
very
I'm
positive.
very, I'm very, I'm very happy for you and excited for this new phase for you. Barb, thank you so much. I know we're meeting you at the beginning of your journey, so I know there's a lot of questions still. Later this year, once you have concluded your sale and your move is complete, I hope we'll be able to bring you back here so our listeners can hear what that
Sure,
experience was exactly like for you.
for sure. I mean, you got great help and guidance. It'll make the transition good. At least I hope. Maybe
Wonderful.
not emotional, but it'll go good. It's
the
yes.
practical the practical side is very important. So
Mhm.
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
That's it. As we come to the end of today's conversation, what stands out to me is how much these decisions are about far more than simply buying or selling a property. A home carries years of memories, routines, and identity, and stepping away from that space can bring a mix of emotions: pride, uncertainty, nostalgia, and sometimes even relief. What Susie reminds us is that these transitions tend to go much more smoothly when they're approached thoughtfully and proactively rather than in response to a crisis. Starting the conversation early, exploring options, and taking small steps to prepare can give older adults something that is incredibly important at this stage of life: choice and control over how the next chapter unfolds. For adult children who might be listening, today's discussion is also a gentle reminder that these decisions often benefit from patience and open conversation. The goal is not simply to solve a logistical problem, but to support the dignity, independence, and wishes of the person or people whose home and life are at the center of the decision. And I want to thank Barb for joining us today and sharing a bit about where she is at the beginning of this journey. Later on, once the sale and relocation are complete, we hope to bring Barb back so our listeners can hear what the experience was really like, from the first conversations all the way through to selling and settling into a new home. Because hearing those real stories helps all of us better understand what these transitions look like in practice. And as always, if today's episode sparked a conversation in your own family about planning ahead, downsizing, or rethinking the next stage of life, then we've done exactly what this podcast hopes to do: open the door to thoughtful conversations about aging well. As always, I ask, if this episode sparked something for you, please share it with your family, your friends, or anyone you care about. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to this podcast if you're enjoying what you hear. Thank you for listening in and sharing your time with me. And please join me each week for new insights into aging with dignity. Until next time, reminding us all to age gracefully and live vibrantly. Everything you've heard today, just real talk. It's just our personal stories, experiences, and honest opinions. This podcast isn't providing legal, medical, financial, or therapeutic advice. And no, listening doesn't make me or my guests your lawyer, doctor, financial advisor, or therapist. The guests and I are here to share stories, spark ideas, and hopefully give you something to think about. When it comes to the big decisions, make sure you do your homework or check in with the experts who know your situation best. We're here to keep the conversation going. You're the one in the driver's seat.